All right, let's jump right into it. Europe is making an absolute high-stakes gamble right now to secure its place in the global AI arms race, and it is starting with a staggering amount of cash. This isn't just about building faster computers. We're talking about a fundamental shift in global tech power. So in today's explainer, we're going to break down exactly how the pieces are moving on the board.
To really set the scene here, I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a little animated stickman just waltzing up to a massive Paris server farm, lugging a bag stuffed with $830 million. I mean, that is literally the staggering amount of debt financing the French generative AI company Mistral AI just secured from a consortium of European banks. In the incredibly fast-paced world of tech, it's a colossal local investment.
So what exactly is all that cash buying them? Well, this massive influx of capital is specifically earmarked to equip a brand new data center right outside Paris with 13,800 cutting-edge Nvidia GB300 GPUs. To put that into perspective, this setup alone will deliver 44 megawatts of pure compute capacity, which is literally enough to power a small city. And the crazy part? This isn't even the finish line. It pushes Mistral much closer to their highly ambitious goal of reaching 200 megawatts of total capacity across Europe by the end of 2027.
Which brings us to Section 1, the Global Infrastructure Arms Race, David versus Goliath.
Because, look, context is absolutely everything here. While Mistral's move is a huge local win, the insane scale we're dealing with globally is it's wild. Our little stickman's massive $830 million bet actually looks kind of tiny when you put it next to Meta's recent $27 billion compute deal with Nebius. And it looks totally microscopic next to SoftBank's astronomical $87.3 billion commitment for a 5-gigawatt AI infrastructure build-out happening right there in the exact same country, France. We are literally talking about hundreds of billions of dollars flying across the globe right now.
And McKinsey & Company hit the nail on the head in their recent M&A trends report. They pointed out this crucial realization. We aren't just talking about companies buying server racks anymore. This unprecedented capital reallocation is a literal fight for survival in a fundamentally changing tech landscape. As they perfectly stated, these specific investments will decide exactly who leads the world for the next 10 years.
I mean, the stakes literally could not be higher. Just look at Anthropic. They dropped a jaw-dropping $10 billion on compute and training compared to just $5 billion in revenue. But despite throwing all that money at the problem, their market share rapidly fell from 29.1% down to 13.3% in a single year. And get this, 6 Chinese AI models are now actually outranking Claude on OpenRouter, which is a popular AI model leaderboard. It just goes to show that money alone does not guarantee a win. And honestly, that is terrifying for these companies.
So moving on to Section 2. Europe's digital sovereignty push, securing the future.
So how is Europe actually responding to all this intense global pressure? Well, it all comes down to digital sovereignty. But what does that actually mean? The European Commission has made it abundantly clear, especially under their Digital Markets Act review, that regulating cloud services and AI is a massive priority. Basically, they want to ensure the European region doesn't become entirely dependent on foreign tech titans from the US or China. This matters because it's fundamentally about keeping European user data in AI models under local control, governed by their very own rules.
And Mistral is really acting as the tip of the spear for this localized compute strategy. They are expanding so incredibly fast. I mean, they kicked off the year with a $1.43 billion investment in a Swedish data center back in February, and followed it right up with this new $830 million Paris stronghold in March. They are out there actively building the physical foundation for Europe's AI independence.
But they aren't going at this European build-out alone. Neocloud providers, these newer, super agile cloud computing companies, they're also rushing to lay down roots. Take Nebius, for instance. They've announced plans to deploy a massive 310-megawatt AI data center in Finland, utilizing cutting-edge Nvidia Blackwell and Rubin architectures. The race to rival U.S. infrastructure on European soil is speeding up every single month.
All right, that takes us to Section 3, GPUs and power bottlenecks, overcoming physical constraints.
Because here's the thing, you can have all the money in the world, but you still have to deal with, well, the laws of physics and supply chains. According to McKinsey's analysis, the frantic scramble for tech mergers and acquisitions right now is driven directly by companies desperately trying to lock down these critical resources. Sure, it's a massive land grab for computing capacity, but even more importantly, it's a scramble for energy-secure locations and guaranteed GPU supply lines.
And honestly, this is where the engineering gets super fascinating, because running all these massive AI workloads entirely on centralized cloud servers, it's becoming economically and frankly thermally impossible long-term.
They just generate way too much heat and suck up way too much power. So the industry is shifting toward a hybrid model. They call it the compute continuum. This basically routes workloads dynamically between local chips and the centralized cloud, which saves power and drastically lowers costs. To give you an idea of just how effective that is, by pushing basic processing down to local devices, instead of relying entirely on the cloud, companies are seeing up to a 60% reduction in token usage. You know, those basic units of data AI models process for tasks like code generation. Plus, they're seeing massive cost reductions for web page generation. In this race, efficiency is proving to be just as important as raw power.
And it's a good thing they're prioritizing efficiency, because the power draw of those centralized cloud centers is so intense that European grid operators are basically being forced to adapt just to keep the lights on. Facing massive connection queues, operators, like the UK's National Grid, are actively deploying grid-enhancing technologies like dynamic line rating. This uses smart sensors to safely push more power through existing wires, totally avoiding years of physical build times. They are literally hacking the grid to feed the AI.
Let's bring it all together in Section 4, Winning the Next AI Decade, the Strategic Playbook. So when you consider all these massive investments, the intense rivalries, and the very real physical constraints we just talked about, the playbook we've synthesized from our sources for this explainer is actually incredibly clear. Step 1, you absolutely have to raise astronomical amounts of capital, often through debt or growth funding. Step 2, you take that money and build localized, energy-secure data centers to satisfy those regional sovereignty rules. And Step 3, you intelligently route your workloads using those hybrid compute continuum architectures so you don't melt your servers or go completely bankrupt paying your electricity bill. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang framed this absolutely perfectly at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He urged nations to treat this entire 5-layer technology stack as critical infrastructure, calling it, quite literally, the largest infrastructure build-out in human history. Make no mistake, we are witnessing the industrial revolution of the digital age happening right now in real time.
So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to take away from today's explainer. As our little animated stickman David builds his $830 million slingshot out there in Paris, and as Europe fights tooth and nail to build its sovereign infrastructure, is it actually going to be enough? Can a localized, highly regulated strategy genuinely secure sovereignty against the multi-billion-dollar US and Chinese Goliaths? Well, that is the multi-billion-dollar question that will completely define the next decade of technology.